Here we go. All ones. The United Cities has its roots as many things of this world in the fall of the Second Empire. During its last days, the Emperor Catlan fought a conflict with the Akronite cult, which ended in their exodus from the Empire. During these dark times, not all humans chose to follow the Akronites in their exile. Many humans either did not believe in their dogmatic religion or thought it better to stay under the harsh rule of the skeletons rather than risk starving to death in a slowly dying world full of unknown horrors. Soon the humans who remained found that they were wrong. The remaining labor force of the Empire was no longer able to sustain the infrastructure of this once mighty realm. With the Empire at the brink of collapse, the great disastrous events of the crater was the final straw that broke the Empire and caused a great famine to fall upon the land, causing many to die of starvation and disease. As though to add insult to injury to these suffering people, the once noble Catlan had grown insane with paranoia after the conflict with the Akronites. This had caused both human and skeleton alike to lose faith in the once noble goals of the Second Empire. Soon, even the skeleton commanders under Catlan, after seeing the conditions the humans had been forced to live in the decaying empire, had become sympathetic to the plight of the humans. These commanders out of sympathy allowed the humans to leave and find their own survival in the devastated lands beyond the borders of the Empire. As these humans left the once green lands of the Second Empire, they joined with the freedom-seeking bands of pirates who had found ways to survive in the scorched lands beyond the Empire's borders. These pirates of the Great Desert had to find ways to manage their resources as new refugees flooded into their lands. Together, these humans began to harvest the meager resources they could from the devastation of the old world, and together they founded new independent cities of their own far to the northeast. As the light of hope slowly burned out of the Second Empire, and the people gave up on its once noble dream, its cities were either slowly abandoned or left to their own devices, becoming new city-states of their own, living free from the control of the skeleton, who had long ago withdrawn from our world. Eventually, as time went on, and the tyranny of Catlan became a distant memory, the abandoned lands of the Second Empire were slowly reclaimed by both the newly founded city-states of the Scorched Lands and the abandoned cities to the south. With the founding of these cities came new trade routes, connecting the world together again. These trade routes allowed the riches of the world to flow, making the city-states powerful with the wealth generated by a newly formed traders' guild, who moved these resources to where they were needed. With this network of trade established, new levels of communication brought the cities together as never before, forming a new nation of united cities. With great wealth also came great greed, and the ideas of freedom the city-states were founded upon were slowly twisted by their avarice, believing that those who wished freedom needed wealth to attain it. With this philosophy in mind, the wealthiest of the united cities formed a new ruling body, called the Noble Circle, made up of 18 nobles, 9 from the rulers of the city-states, and 9 from the ranks of the Traders Guild, and from this circle's ranks is elected an emperor to lead this union of cities. Untold cycles of greed and exploitation have lasted unchanged for much of the history of the United Cities, and it was only in the time of the Emperor Azani when the status quo was challenged, as a great series of droughts struck the southern plains of the United Cities, causing massive food shortages. As the crops failed, the people looked to the Traders Guild to supply the much-needed food to support the growing cities. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, they realized that the bandits of the lands beyond the cities had barred the way of the Traders Guild's caravans, stealing what they could so they could survive this time of woe themselves. As the resources of this time dwindled, the rich took what they could and hoarded the meager supplies needed to maintain their civilization from those too poor to outbid them. As starvation killed many and the suffering of the people of the United Cities grew, they rose up in revolt, killing many of the rich and powerful nobles. As blood filled the streets, they stole what they could to survive, and even the Emperor Azani was killed by the violent mobs looking for food. As the chaos of what was dubbed the Red Rebellion died down, the Noble Circle elected a new emperor, a noble known as Tengu. This cruel and impulsive man was known for his lack of common sense, and was elected not for his ability to rule, but for his malleability of character, and the ability to be influenced by others, namely the Noble Circle and the Traitors Guild. As the Red Rebellion ran its course and stability returned to the United Cities, what remained of the uprising was ruthlessly hunted down and either enslaved or put to death. To this day, the downtrodden and oppressed poor are arrested and sold into slavery, for they are seen as a threat to the United Cities. In recent times, the Holy Nation has launched a sneak attack on the region of Bast, the breadbasket of the United Cities. It is said that the city of Bast was wiped out in a single day, and the people killed for their greed. The Holy Nation has spared only the children, who are now learning of Okron's mercy as slaves and rebirth. The war effort in Bast is being overseen by Lord Inaba of Stoat. The goals of the United Cities is not to destroy the Holy Nation, but to push them back and take the military outpost of Okron's shield, and use the Okronites as a bulwark against the fearsome warriors of the Shek Kingdom. This war has caused much in the way of suffering for the common people of the United Cities, as the food shortages have forced many to turn to banditry or be enslaved for their poverty by the nobles who have turned a blind eye to their needs. Many of these peasants and farmers have started a new rebellion that is gaining traction, as many have no other choice for their survival. With its great wealth and power hungry nobles, it is no surprise that the United Cities has many enemies. Among them the skilled warriors of the Shek Kingdom, who in the past have raided the trade caravans of the Traitors Guild, but stand as a minor threat so long as the Holy Nation rests between them and the United Cities itself. There are also those who would stop the trade of slaves in this world and have caused no end of trouble to the Traitors Guild and the United Cities. These anti-slavers strike from unknown quarters, freeing the slaves and disrupting the economy of the land. Both the Traitors Guild and the Noble Circle have done much to stop the anti-slavers, but to little effect. Due to the war with the Holy Nation, food shortages have caused many peasants and farmers to rise up in rebellion. Though not dangerous as the Red Rebellion, they are becoming more organized by a man known as Boss Simon. Under his leadership, the rebels have harassed the supply lines of the United Cities. Despite these enemies, the sheer power and wealth of the United Cities seems to be enough to assure that the Noble Circle will rule for a long time to come, for who can stand against their ruthlessness and the economic power of the Traitors Guild? They say in the Vang nothing burns as bright as the lasers, but that all changed when they met, and their desire began to outshine the brightest of all lasers from the sky. This love story of drug-running and roaring passions will leave you breathless and asking for more, as they survive both the Vang and the hot, burning desires of their heart in the book that has been banned from the Holy Nation, Lovers of the Vang.